Rising, the sequel to Reach and just as good as the first. The Reach universe expands as Reach finds his way to Mars and meets the humans who colonized the planet years ago to escape the establishment of Nation. Rising is the second book in the For the Stars series by Olivia McCarthy, the Kisses Only sci-fi author at Olivia McCarthy Author on Instagram. The For the Stars series has been a pleasure to read so far, and I look forward to continuing reading. Welcome to Freytag's Lab, where I review indie and traditionally published books for gripping stories, sensational characters, and clean romance, as well as post some of my own writing ventures. If it's clean, I'll probably read it. Spoiler warning, check the description for the chapters and skip ahead to the 4-point rating for a no spoilers content analysis. Okay, here's the new situation. Reach and Llama sit at odds on their redirected space voyage that is on course for Mars. They make contact with the Martian colony of Jezero and get permission to land. There they meet the president of Jezero Colony, Reach's dad, Greg, and learn there's another Martian colony, Souterrain, where Llama's dad was from. But Reach can't settle into the new colony's way of life as it is simply another version of Nation. When Llama exposes Greg and his people spying on Reach and herself, resulting in Llama being injured, they get kicked out to Souterrain, where Llama meets her grandparents, the king and queen of Souterrain. With Souterrain's people and leadership being much more welcoming, and the violation of treaties between Jezero and Souterrain by Jezero coming to light, the king and queen urge for a diplomatic marriage between Reach, the heir to Jezero's presidency, and Llama, the heir to Souterrain's throne. As Reach and Llama's relationship heals, the marriage preparations commence, just in time for Greg to show up and reveal Jezero's air systems are failing, and so are Souterrain's. At the end of the evacuation, Reach is named president and is responsible for his people, while Greg stays behind with the few that remain. But Souterrain's air system isn't far behind, and the two colonies will have no choice but to return to Earth and Nation, and they are prepared and willing to join Reach and Llama to fight. Alright, we've got 2 more locations and 2 new governments. Mars goes without saying. On Mars, we have 2 colonies. Let's start with Jezero. Jezero Colony, a Mars colony run by Reach's dad, President Greg McAllister. Jezero is a democracy for the most part, with a government with offices, employment through which people earn currency and purchase food and goods, with basic necessities, food, clothing, and shelter, being provided as part of membership within the colony. Provisions are provided in proportion to how much the family does to assist the colony. Families who provide less receive less, e.g. get the government-funded hand-me-downs after higher providing citizens are accounted for. Lesser providers are also sectioned off from higher providers. They can interact, but the living situations are vastly different. Jezero has a strong technological society and prioritizes work and advancement. Children are a rarity, and Jezero attempted to invest in manufacturing the process of reproduction so women can work and provide and have children without carrying them. They also have preparations made for children born abnormal or unproductive. Next, Souterrain. Souterrain is a Mars colony run by King Alfred and Queen Eleanor, Llama's grandparents. Souterrain is a healthy monarchy and agriculture-driven society that provides the essentials for its people without the worth-based stipulations Nation and Jezero have, and has a generous school system that emphasizes independent and practical learning. The culture is highly familial and social. Despite a structured hierarchy, it is not strict or harsh, and the people are all actively and willingly involved in contributing to the good of their neighbors and colony. Souterrain prioritizes family and community. Children are protected and taught with their individual developmental needs in mind. Souterrain is both agriculturally and biologically productive, rather than technologically productive. Can you tell which one of these is preferable? Anyway, these are the most important locations and concepts. The list isn't as long as the last time, but that doesn't mean the story was a lesser quality. The sequel was just as brilliantly done and emotionally charged. So, we know Reach, we know Llama. Let's meet some of the important new characters and some of my favorites. Greg, a well-done anti-villain, good intentions, bad execution, and a semi-weasel but not fully weasel personality. Before Reach, Greg was the latest in a family line full of presidents and inherited a colony that, while well-intentioned in its creation, has resulted in a bit of a slightly less intense version of Nation. Greg has a bit of a negative history, including the unethical and treaty-violating manufacturing of child reproduction, which got shut down pretty quickly, his highly accusatory and dismissive behavior towards Souterrain, and his cowardice in leadership as he fails to stand up to his corrupt second-in-command at the expense of his people. In the end, he ultimately sacrifices his life to die with the remainder of his people who stay in Jezero during the evacuation, but, while noble, he may have avoided the incident altogether by being upstanding earlier on. Percy. This is the full weasel. This is a good picture of him. Anyway, Percy was set to inherit presidency before Reach arrived. As Greg's only relative and a big star in the eyes of the people, his gig was set. Until he tries to hide the air system failure and pretty much bring his entire society to the brink of destruction just so he could fix it himself. I mean, seriously, how much more weaselly can you get? Yet another painfully feelable, nails-on-a-chalkboard antagonist from McCarthy. Finally, King Alfred and Queen Eleanor. Yes, these are two separate characters, but come on. They're a power couple unit with an awesome push-pull character dynamic and cute romantic marriage. In perfect contrast to Greg, they're upstanding. First to die for their people, last to lie for their own interests. So far, they seem to be the first characters Reach and Llama can trust from the get-go, and it gives some much-needed and well-timed emotional relief. King Alfred is stoic, but very much a healthy masculine figure, and Queen Eleanor is a strong feminine and maternal presence. They welcome Llama into their family fold immediately, and welcome Reach with open arms and a fair chance to show what he's made of. Like I always say, of course there are more well-done and important side characters, like Beatrice and Kate, two antagonistic characters who prey on Reach's tendency to be distracted by the female form, and Phil, Dr. Jog, Mars Edition. But if you want to meet them, you'll have to read the book. I've been looking forward to this part, the character arcs. Reach's arc continues on, emotionally charged and full of growth, and Llama's arc has exploded with emotions, tension, and redemption. First, Reach, because he's the main character. When he arrives on Mars, he still struggles with his most outstanding character flaw. Women. Important, but not important right now. So, man versus society, man versus man, and man versus self. First, man versus society. Reach finds familiarity in the Jezero society, which on the surface possesses the best elements of nation. Jezero's technologically advanced, but its people aren't slaves, and everyone has the opportunity to work, purchase goods, and choose their jobs. Yet the society still keeps Reach on his toes. There are still poorer families being overlooked and ignored, and the societal expectation is that Reach will ignore the little bit of bad for the greater amounts of good. Since he, as a visitor, doesn't feel like he has much of a right to speak up yet, Reach is pressured by society and its structure as a whole to overlook the low points and stay wrapped up in the highs. Society also puts Reach in an elevated position of respect, now taking him out of the shoes of the poor man, with whom he as a nation citizen would identify, and tempts him to abandon his newfound morals to claim the rank he may now carry. And it almost works if not for Llama, more on her part in her character arc section later. Reach's versus society arc during Rising continues in Souterrain. He faces an obviously less dire, but still present conflict with Souterrain society as he learns how to be a member of a social structure he is entirely unfamiliar with. The conflict's not negative like with Jezero, just conflict in the sense of different values clashing. As a significant Jezero leadership descendant, he is both an object of suspicion and a welcome hope for alliance. The Souterrain conflict resolves rather quickly, and the Jezero conflict loses strength as he enters his leadership role. The Souterrain conflict resolves rather quickly, and the Jezero conflict loses strength as he enters his leadership role. Society and societal pressure remain two of Reach's strongest enemies. Later, his merge into Souterrain society resolves most of the versus society conflict. It's easy to fault Reach for being sidetracked at first, but he's not entirely careless. I would say he more so was caught off guard in a moment of waning strength during his long journey. In the end, he got from Souterrain what he expected from Jezero. Next, man versus man. We have Reach versus Greg. He's met his dad. He should be happy. Greg puts his best foot forward, yet for all the good Reach sees, something is artificial, but he's almost unwilling to break through the facade and face the reality that Jezero may not be the better society he had hoped to find, and Greg may not be the good man his mom thought he was. Reach's conflict with Greg is somewhat professional. It's himself versus another misguided and selfish leader. As he takes in the society Greg leads, Reach realizes Greg is willing to overlook the bad and encourages Reach to do the same. Greg is wrapped up in political conflict with Souterrain and makes getting his way a priority, much like the leadership of nation. Although Reach wants to be close with his dad, he can see the cracks in the armor that keep him in doubt of just how good Jezero is. When Llama reveals Jezero leadership is spying on them and also engaged in multiple unethical and immoral practices, Reach's disappointment is actually very minimal. Reach isn't intimately emotionally disappointed like he was betrayed by someone he loves. Much like the disappointment when he was betrayed by Llama before, he didn't lose a reality, he lost a fantasy he desperately wished was real, and he's much more accepting of it this time around. Now, shifting over to Souterrain, we have Reach versus King Alfred. This conflict is much more lighthearted. Reach conflicts with King Alfred as a descendant of Jezero, the son of Jezero's president, and the budding romantic interest of the king's granddaughter Lama. King Alfred challenges Reach's choices and beliefs nearly every time they interact, demanding that Reach prove himself and show what he's made of. This conflict forced Reach to slow down, focus on each step instead of getting swept up in all the changes, and learn when to be soft and when to be firm and what actions he should take. King Alfred is not an antagonistic conflict, but a foil who keeps Reach on his toes and feeds into his character growth with both adversity and information. Finally, Man versus Self. I've already mentioned Reach's main inner conflict, the desire for belonging, trying to figure out how much he's willing to overlook to finally have a place. There was no way to settle into Nation, and although he could have held his tongue and got by in Jezero, he finally finds resolution in Souterrain. He is welcomed by the royalty and the colony and given a fair chance to make something of himself and just exist without being a target. All the struggles culminate in a dramatic relief as he finally can be part of a family and part of a healthy culture in the same place. The conclusion of Reach's arc for Book 2 happens when Jezero colony is evacuated to Souterrain and Reach is named president so that Greg can stay behind. Reach has power he didn't ask for, another smaller Man versus Self conflict, people who don't entirely trust or respect him, the next Man versus Man conflict, and the stage is set for the return of his conflict with Nation as they prepare to return to Earth. Book 2's conflicts end and establish the conflicts for Book 3. Now Lama's character arc, because I loved seeing more of her side of things. First, Man versus Society, Lama versus Jezero. Well, Reach is initially a little distracted by all the bells and whistles of Jezero and letting himself be, to a point, oblivious about how bad Jezero is. Lama doesn't let down her guard. Because of this, she narrows in immediately on the underbelly of Jezero's apparently superior society, and, since she doesn't have to play nice with the politicians like Reach does, noses around and finds Jezero's secrets. Many of Nation's flaws are present in Jezero, slapping her in the face once again with the fact that she can't relax yet either, and that this supposedly better society is in fact still corrupt in some of the ways that tear through her heart most. Furthermore, Jezero's government, realizing she hails from Souterrain, is very hostile, and she is already an outsider before she even has a chance to show what she believes. She was never going to have a chance. Just like in Nation, she's an outsider who may never earn her place. These parallel conflicts of Lama versus Nation and Lama versus Jezero hammer home the fact that Jezero is not the hero colony. Next, we have Man versus Man, Lama versus Beatrice. So Reach, again, is distracted by a pretty cook named Beatrice, who works in the Jezero government kitchen. Reach's big character flaw aside, Lama immediately finds Beatrice suspicious, and although she lacks evidence, she won't let Reach get hurt. Between how society treats her and how Beatrice rubs her the wrong way, Lama is given all the encouragement she needs to start hunting for a way to expose Jezero to Reach. This moment is evidence of how Lama compliments Reach, or maybe just does a better job not getting distracted by the opposite sex. Anyway, Lama's jealousy of Beatrice makes Reach doubt her, but Lama proves she was right. Her conflict with Beatrice is short-lived and strongly linked to her bigger conflict with Jezero society, but also shows Lama's genuine desire to help Reach and make amends for her betrayal. This conflict most significantly shows her integrity and strength as she does what she knows is right. She won't be deterred from doing the right thing by society, female rivals, or even Reach's own jaded behavior. Next is Lama versus Greg. Again, this conflict is closely tied to her versus society conflict. Greg, when he learns she's from Souterrain, immediately treats her like a threat and like a lesser being. He is colder with her than Reach, attempts to separate her and Reach, and expects her to keep a smile on her face through it all for diplomacy's sake. He insults her parents to her face and implies she's from an inferior society and treats her as such. This arc ends pretty much when she and Reach arrive in Souterrain, and the resolution is as simple as she no longer has to deal with Greg, but it hammers home for us Greg's character. Lama's Man versus Self arc consists mainly of two things, a desire for belonging and a desire to shake the horrors she faced in Nation. While this isn't in-depth explored because she isn't the main character, we can see from the last book how this inner conflict led her to betray Reach, and now it leads her to help and protect him, because she won't let him be manipulated into being part of the problem. This arc concludes with her family in Souterrain, when she finally has parents, a healthy society, and Reach forgives her, allowing to put her mistake in the past with everything else she suffered. Now, finally, Reach versus Lama and their growth. Their independent arcs reveal to us a similarity between them. They both desperately crave belonging. Their arcs are shaped around finding a healthy society in which they can be healthy, happy people with a family. It's because of this similarity that the potential for forgiveness from Reach to Llama over her betrayal exists. He's able to, over the course of the book, understand what she's feeling from personal experience and let his hurt heal so he can love her. They still remain outstanding complements. Reach faces his greatest weakness, the temptation of a pretty woman, and Llama pulls him out of it. When Reach realizes being in Jezero is hurting Llama and that too many people are still suffering the way Llama suffered in Ward 11, he accepts being outcast from Jezero, his paternal origin society, to keep her safe. When Reach forgives Llama, it's not because she earned it or proved herself to him, but because by the latter half of the book, he saw her go from her lowest low as a nation prisoner to her highest high as part of a family, and realized he loved her more than he wanted to hold on to hate over something that happened in a horrible situation. While Llama tries to prove herself worthy of forgiveness during the first half, she never begs. She just tries to be as honest and upstanding as the person she really wants to be, and gives Reach the space he needs while still protecting her friend. Reach never crosses the line into abuse, and Llama never becomes pining and self-deprecating. Their relationship is extremely charming and healthy. These arcs were seriously well done, because while Llama's arc meets its conclusion a little earlier than Reach's arc has continued conflict all the way to the end of the book, and this is good, because he's the main character. When his conflicts stop, so do the story. Next, outstanding plot moments. First and foremost is their arrival on Mars. From the very beginning, Jezero's idyllic and assumptively better society is a source of relief. We think the moment has come, but there's a buildup of increasingly suspicious events, immediately bolstered by superficially comforting activities, cementing in the story that Jezero is not yet the place for our characters to emotionally settle. Next, for me, was Llama's reveal that Greg and the Jezero government were spying on her and Reach since they arrived. Her trauma from Ward 11 comes to light and shows what shapes her worldview and decisions in every moment prior. She takes confident and aggressive action, ripping a spy device out of the wall and accusing Beatrice to her face of seducing Reach, just to show Reach that Jezero isn't any better than Nation. I love how powerful of a character Llama is in this moment and the tension of yet another milder but still strong enemy. I also enjoyed the introduction to Souterrain. The colony doesn't feel artificially positive and perfect the way Jezero or Nation are. Souterrain also isn't a super goody-goody enabling unstructured place. Souterrain welcomes Reach and Llama with an expected and respectable amount of suspicion, but not the obsessive paranoia of the other governments so far. The colony felt real and authentic, which made it stand out in a positive way after everything Reach and Llama have been through. It was a brilliant introduction to the story's new allies. As in the first book, the author has a skill for contrasts and creating both unsettling and organic locations that make the story feel full. And of course, the last and most brilliant part of the story was Reach and Llama actually getting married. The ceremony is charming and shaped by Llama's culture, and Reach gladly assimilates, and both are proudly joined in marriage. Now, major themes. Like the first book, there's the theme of forgiveness. Reach learns to see the bigger picture about Llama and let her mistake fade into the past. He also has a remarkable willingness to avoid holding grudges as the Souterrain and Jezero colonies adjust to his presence. He doesn't seek revenge and is understanding of the effects of his jarring presence. The theme of human dignity is still going strong too. King Alfred and Queen Eleanor reaffirm the importance of human life, community, and protecting even those who would rather perpetrate conflict when the situation calls for it. They don't allow arrogance to color their actions and treat everyone with equal mercy until they prove themselves a real and true deadly danger. As far as pacing goes, I don't think it could be more perfect in this story. Nothing feels rushed, nothing feels out of place, and nothing drags. Equilibrium has been met. For unanswered questions, only one. Who's gonna die in the next book? Come on. Reach and Llama are both happy. The king and queen of Souterrain seem too wonderful. Reach and Llama are married, and a traitorous antagonist from Jezero seems all too likely to either make or break a crucial moment of trust. And the whole crew is getting ready to go face Nation, leader, second, and in force. Now, onto the 4-point rating. Positive messages and positive role models. Reach remains a forgiving and patient character. Although he had the opportunity to be any level of stubborn and arrogant, he remains open and understanding of other perspectives and aware and respectful of the different colonies' cultures. He is a good example of proper diplomacy and mercy. Llama is also an example of integrity and perseverance. We learn the full scope of what she faced in Ward 11, and although she's forced to confront her past, she doesn't crumble. She keeps the greater good in the forefront of her mind and doesn't give in to peer pressure she faces while in Jezero. She fights back. As far as cursing goes, none that I recall. If there was, it was likely a made-up curse. For drinking and drugs, also none. Again, if there was, it likely wasn't significant enough to warrant worry. I would have remembered. For spice, Kate, one of the new side characters on the antagonistic side, is very forcefully flirtatious. Pretty PG-rated and negatively portrayed, she hints Reach has a private bathroom they can meet in, insists Reach will become interested in her offers in time, and then later Reach becomes enamored with Beatrice, mentioning various beautiful aspects of her appearance, voice, etc. Again, PG. Reach and Llama kiss a few times in the second half of the book, and there's mention of how their lips are swollen from it. As a whole, the moments didn't make my skin crawl, so I think it's tame enough. And of course, moments with Reach and Llama are usually very sweet. For my final recommendation, I give Rising 5 stars. It's an extremely strong sequel and just as powerful as the first book. The new characters are striking, the new antagonists feel human and either sympathetic or disgusting. The colonies are incredible culturally and politically, and the resolution of Reach and Llama's conflict was heartwarming. I was not disappointed, and I look forward to when Book 3 can be featured on my channel. Please like, subscribe, comment, and check out Rising.